Hello from Skiathos, the Greek island, where we're exploring the relationship between landscape, soulscape, and a creative life. Today, we're going to be delving into the experience of loneliness and the longing to belong in a community of people that will understand, hold, and nurture our authentic self. And I'll offer some ideas for pathways through these difficult sensations of loneliness towards a more peaceful way of being. We've never been more connected in all of human history. We can message almost everyone we know with the phone in our pocket anytime we feel like it. And yet, studies show that there's a growing sense of loneliness, certainly in countries such as the UK and United States, and particularly amongst young people and younger adults. This subject has come up in conversation for me with a number of people over the last few weeks. And so, in today's episode, we're going to explore this sensation of loneliness. Where does it come from? And what to do with the experience when it arises? And specifically, I'm going to discuss that sense of loneliness that comes when we feel disconnected from a group or community we've felt at home with for some time. This often happens when we go through periods of change and transformation. As human beings, we have an innate longing to belong. But what happens when that place where we used to belong is no longer able to hold us? These are difficult feelings to encounter. And here's the thing with difficult feelings, whatever they might be, our instinct is to pull away and avoid them, to distract or soothe ourselves with things we find comforting. Perhaps we even resent the sensations themselves and the things that we feel may have caused them. But if instead of looking away, we approach with curiosity, holding ourselves with gentleness and kindness, we can very often find a path through and beyond what feels like an insurmountable obstacle. And we can find a path onwards to our own flourishing and fulfillment. Loneliness is an unsettling and unpleasant sensation for sure. The Booker Prize winner of 2025, David Cizé, won the award partly for his portrayal of loneliness. He left 5 pages of his novel completely blank, the emptiness and heaviness of loneliness so intense that there were no words to express them. In some ways, loneliness is simply an intrinsic part of being human. A few weeks ago, I posted a couple of paintings online with very different colour palettes. And I asked about people's relationship to colour and how it made them feel, and what meanings it held for them. One response talked about their experience of being colourblind. So most people have cells in their retinas that can detect 3 wavelengths of light, red, blue and green. But people who are colourblind only have 2. Someone else responded with their experience of tetrachromacy. So they have cells that can detect 4 different wavelengths of light in their eyes. Each are equally lonely spaces to occupy. And I realized that it was impossible to communicate the quality, the genuine sensation of these different experiences of being and perceiving. How could we ever know if what I experience as red is the same as you do? We are all alone in the reality unfolding in our minds, and the struggle to communicate our inner worlds to each other is something that artists, writers, and musicians have been wrestling with for millennia. Also, let's make the important distinction between solitude and loneliness. Um, Times of solitude are a healthy part of being human. And, depending on our level of extroversion or introversion, we will all have our different gauges and limits of what length of time is healthy and helpful for us. As an introvert, I can manage a good few days and feel quite at peace in solitude. And whilst I know some of my extrovert friends would be craving company after an hour or so, you know yourself and you know what feels good for you and helpful for your temperament. But whatever dosage of solitude we can cope with, some intentional times of aloneness, solitude, are beneficial to our souls and psyches. To breathe deep and simply allow ourselves to be without any social pressures. This might mean going for a walk on your own, playing a video game for a few hours, or going on a retreat for a month. Loneliness, though, feels different. There's a deep longing for connection that isn't being fulfilled. And there are some moments in our lives when we are catapulted into loneliness. I told the story in episode 7 on this channel of how I went from being an ordained minister in the Methodist Church to a queer artist mystic who makes art out in wild spaces. And that loss of a sense of community was very real. Not in the sense of people actively rejecting me and telling me to get out, but in a kind of drift away. I just didn't matter anymore in those networks and spaces that I used to have a key and active role in. And to be fair, if I was invited back into those spaces, I'm not sure they would understand where I'm coming from, or vice versa, really. For all of us, there will be times in our lives when we have experienced a change in our sense of self, or are setting out to transform an aspect of ourselves for the better. Communities such as a social group who go out partying every weekend, or maybe a church or other religious community, whilst not being bad things in themselves, maybe begin to become places where we're misunderstood at best, or even actively rejected at worst. And so, in order to maintain our circle of friends and the community that sustained us for so long, we have to kind of cosplay as our old self, nodding along to ideas and statements we no longer agree with, joining in with that next round of shots at the bar just to fit in, and so on. This is the loneliness we experience in the midst of the crowd, which is as much as, and perhaps even more acute than when we are sitting at home on our own. At times, we feel the pressure to act as our old self because the alternative is loneliness, wandering off on our own and wondering where we could find a group of friends, a community that could hold and understand who we really are now. It can feel as if presenting our true, authentic selves to people risks a profound alienation and rejection. And sometimes it does. This can be as stark as the trans teenager having the courage to come out to their conservative religious parents, the person who was always the life and soul of the party at the nightclub deciding it's time to go teetotal, or the woman in a loveless marriage standing up and finally saying she's had enough. All of these send huge reverberations through the social structures that have held them. Or it may be much more subtle, our gently shifting and changing sense of self, meaning that we feel less and less like the person the people around us expect us to be. So, if you are feeling lonely, you're not alone. Now, let's approach this difficult sensation with curiosity, rather than trying to cover it up and distract ourselves. As ever, going deeper into the experience and truly understanding it is where the solution lies. Move into that space of deep, connected inner wisdom. And I offer some ideas about how you can do that in episode 3 on this channel, Entering the World of Myth and Story. And there's a guided contemplation there too, which you may find helpful for this. So you move into that place of gentle heart wisdom and ask the question that flows from the loneliness, the longing for belonging, and ask, what am I really longing for? What am I really longing for? We may think that what we really want is 1,000 likes on Instagram, accolades on social media, or in our career, or in our social group. But we get the 1,000 likes, what do we want next? 10,000. Because if we're always going after the thing that we think we're longing for, we're not focusing on the root of the issue. Oh, and speaking of which, it is it is really helpful to me when people like, subscribe, and share these videos. So if you can do that now, that really would be awesome. Thank you. But I'm taking my own medicine. I do acknowledge that I don't need you to do that for me for me to feel at peace. I'm happy simply to share this with the world. So there we go. But if you feel able to like and share and subscribe, that would be awesome. Thank you. So much of what we think we're longing for is some kind of external validation. We don't feel good enough. We don't feel valued enough if we're not seen, welcomed, accepted, celebrated. And I genuinely hope you experience all of these things. But if our sense of self-worth relies on those things, we will always be dependent on them and will do anything to avoid losing them, including living an inauthentic life, because of the risk of loneliness if we express our true selves. It's just too difficult to confront. If instead we are able to find that place of contentment with no external validation, then if we live from that place, we can go out with our friends on a party on a Friday night or stay at home and watch a film on our own, and either is okay. We can stand on a stage with a packed crowd applauding us, or we can offer ourselves to the world with no one watching. And both are equally life-giving. If we move towards that sensation with curiosity rather than avoiding it, or even dejectedly thinking that there's no hope and it's just something we have to live with, then we'll begin to get a sense of what it really is that we're looking for. And it may surprise us. I sense that a key part of the way to move forward with this is to come back to the question of identity. Because when we're held in a community, it doesn't take us long to get a sense of who we are and what our role is in that group. Maybe we are the life and soul of the party. Maybe we're the thoughtful one who everyone comes to for advice, or the cool one who's great at clothes shopping. And if you think about the groups of friends and communities that you belong to, I'm sure you can discern the different roles that everyone takes in these spaces. As well, you know your role too. And when we inhabit these roles, especially if we've been there for some time, we can become comfortable and entrenched in that shape of being. This is okay up to a point, of course. It's the way that communities work. But the danger comes when we mistake our identity for the role that we're playing in those spaces. And this is ever so easy to do. So when we're shaken from that role of the dutiful mother, the kooky art friend, the dependable co-worker, when we're shaken from those for whatever reason, then our sense of self is shaken to the core. And we need to keep playing that role to maintain our place in the community, because otherwise we're cast out into loneliness. The way to diffuse this dilemma is to realign where we are finding our identity, moving from the dependence on that external validation to an inner assurance of who we are. A few years ago, after I left the church, I started meeting up with a fellow artist in our studios. We met every full moon, and we'd talk about art, life, soul, all the rich, deep things. And just as I had left the institution of the church, so my friend Ali had left the institution of art academia. I had an ordination, she had a PhD. Not bad things in themselves, of course. In the context of the institutions we were part of, the church, the university, these held weight and meaning. The labels gave a sense of identity and a secure knowledge of the roles we were expected to play. Once we stepped outside of those communities, the authority that those badges conveyed dissolved. They only had meaning if we're amongst the people playing that game. Outside of those spaces, any kudos becomes meaningless. I mean, I know nothing about sport. I could be sitting next to the most famous footballer in the world and not bat an eyelid. I don't even know what their name is. I assume they're a man, but I don't know. Whereas for someone else, that could be one of the most exciting experiences of their life. The roles we play are just badges we're given in the games we've chosen. Church, academia, the business boardroom, even in our family or our group of friends. If we tie our identity to them, we'll be eventually constrained and limited in our ability to grow and flourish beyond the boundaries of what the box allows. And the fear of loneliness is one of the driving factors for us to stay in the box. As I talked with Ali, my artist friend, she told me about her concept of self-ordination. And if you're interested to explore her work and ideas, she's an amazing artist mentor amongst many other talents. And you can do so on her Substack. Follow her on Joy Development on Substack, and I'll put a link in the blurb about this video. The idea of self-ordination reconfigures where our sense of authority lies. The Christian minister, the church holds the authority to ordain and confer that identity. The art academic, the university gives the institutional seal of approval. Even in social groups, there's often an unspoken sense of the rules of conduct for the community. And we gain credence by speaking in a particular way, dressing in a particular style, drinking at the right bar, and so on. In playing by these rules, we give away our power. We give away the power to determine who we are to an external authority. The idea of self-ordination claims that power back. So when we ask that question, what am I really looking for? Perhaps part of the answer is we're looking for assurance of who we are. Psychotherapist Carl Jung teaches this idea. He says something like, the world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, then the world will tell you. If we don't have that strong inner sense of identity, then the society around us will give us a box to fit into and stamp a label on it for us. This is the route through loneliness, allowing our true self to flourish from our heart. Having the courage of the self-ordination. The authority is in you and not in any external validation. Now, I'd never advocate moving away from loving connections and walking away from people who care about us. That's the way that cults operate. But many of us who take the soul journey seriously begin to find that things that we used to enjoy no longer satisfy us. Ideas and ideologies we used to hold to start to change and melt away. Sometimes the reason that we're feeling lonely is that we're just not in the right place, and we need to be brave and step out, trusting that we will find the people, we will find the community, the holding space that will enable us to flourish as our authentic selves. But it's only from that place of inner knowledge, of truly knowing who we are, that we can really set out and find the place we belong and truly satisfy that deep longing for authentic connection. One way into exploring this question for yourself that you may find helpful is to use that space of imaginative contemplation and seek out a wisdom figure who you trust. It may be an ancient wise teacher or a tree or an ocean or simply your deep trusted inner heart. And in that quiet meditative space, ask them the question, who am I? Who am I? Take time to listen for the answer and afterwards write it down and use it as an affirmation. You could even speak it out to yourself whilst looking in a mirror. I am strong. I am beautiful. I am creative. I am someone who loves adventure. Whatever the words and descriptions that come to you, let this be the label and the identity you inhabit. And you know, the more we shine as our authentic selves, even if that does mean that communities and groups who we've been a part of for years reject us because of our transformation, the more we shine as our authentic selves like a flower opening in the sunshine, we will attract butterflies, the people who resonate with our energy, the community we truly long for will, in time, be drawn to us. This is a painting I made during the summer a few years ago at Queer Spirit Festival in Devon. I set up a series of canvases hanging from the branches of an oak tree and began to paint. With the revelry, energy and life of the festival community flowing all around me, I embodied that experience on the canvas. And this is the image that emerged. A group of weird, wonderful, complex creatures, all different, but beneath the ground, all connected. Like fungal mycelium that stretches unseen as a network beneath every woodland, intertwining and connecting all that's growing in the community of the forest, communicating and shaping and nourishing the shared space of abundant life. Sometimes quiet and hidden, or other times erupting in glorious mushrooms of vibrant colour. We're all connected. You and I, the trees, the sky, the clouds. We're all part of community, whether we realise it or not. But it's only when we find that deep sense of self, that authentic identity, that we can really find our place of belonging, the loving, holding space that will enable us to flourish. And exploring our loneliness with a sense of curiosity is one of the breadcrumbs on the path that will lead us there. Do let me know in the comments below about your own experiences with loneliness and community, perhaps your frustrations and longings, but also what has worked for you in working through these matters and exploring these things. And as you do explore these things, if a one-to-one video call will be helpful, I've got over 15 years of experience accompanying people on their spiritual journeys. So do drop me a message and we can discuss what might work for you. Also, if you'd be interested in having your personal story and experience and life soul journey expressed in a piece of art, then I'd be really happy to work with you. It might be a painting like this, or a little sculpture or talisman like this driftwood owl painting. Whatever will be helpful for you, send me a message or follow the link attached to this channel. And if there's a subject that you'd be interested in me exploring here on this channel in a video, then do let me know and I'll make a video for you. So thank you for listening. I hope you have a peaceful and gentle day. And I'll be here again at the same time next week for more journeys of art, soul and landscape. Lots of love.